I want to welcome to Hopeful Tribe Timothy Ward from the Timothy Ward channel. He is amazing. He has a great channel. I'm a big fan. He talks a lot about freedom. And since freedom is one of my favorite things, actually, my highest value, I thought I need to invite Timothy onto Hopeful Tribe so we can talk about it. So welcome, Timothy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having me on. I know it took a while to line up schedules and things because I think I was deep in the woods in Florida with very little access to proper technology when you first reached out. So thank you for being patient and glad to be here.
No problem. I'm just grateful you said yes. I have this tiny little fledgling channel. I think I have 263 subscribers right now. So whenever I reach out to somebody with a bigger channel and they say yes, I'm like, wow.
No, it's no problem. It's no problem. I enjoy it. I looked at some of your videos and I like the energy I saw. So I was like, yeah. I want to get on there. Let's talk a little freedom. And when you emailed and said freedom, that's a good way to get me to just ramble on endlessly. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I decided, I started like 9 months ago, but I decided at the turn of the year that I was just going to lean really hard into freedom and burnout recovery this year. Like just really focus on these things cuz they're what I'm most passionate about. So, why not? Right? And um tell me, what is freedom to you?
Freedom to me, I feel like is the ability to, for the majority of your life, do what you want to do. To
Mm,
live most of your life in a manner that you want to live it, doing the things you want to do, being surrounded by the people you want in your life. Just the ideal of this is my life, and like when you look around it, it's set up the way you want it to be set up. And
mm.
I just feel the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I feel the average person can't say that, and like I feel like that should be number one in this life is to be able to be like, yeah, this is the life I designed and this is the life I want. Because if you can't say that, well, then like what are we doing? Why am I here if a majority of my life, my time is spent doing things I don't want to do with people I don't want to be around?
Mm.
What's the point? So yeah, that's what freedom is to me.
I love that. And I think that people, it's not that people can't say that, it's that people don't say that in general because they're not living their best lives. They're not living, doing what they most want to do around the people they want to be with, you know? It's really quite sad, I really think it's um, a beautiful thing that we're having this great resignation and like people are just like fed up with the whole way we've been told we should live our lives, you know?
I agree. I'm totally for the Great Resignation. I always say I'm not so much for it when I get to Wendy's and there's nobody working, so I have to be in the drive-through for 3 hours. But still, I'll make some sacrifices for the greater good. But yeah, I love the fact, and I think and this is a good example I like to use when people are like very down about the current state of the world and things that just keep going on and on. Um, Even in the midst of some very interesting years, we've had like a positive byproduct. No one would have ever thought that at the beginning of 2020, the great resignation and people waking up and being like, you know what? I kind of like being home with my kids and my husband. Like I kind of like working at home and not having to spend 3 hours commuting to the job. You know what I mean? Like no one would have ever thought that would have came out of it. So I think that's like a perfect example of how even in the midst of turmoil and different things going on, there's abundance in the universe that can bring something positive out of that. And yeah, I'm all for people just being like, I'm not doing it no more. And that's the thing too. Like I always say, the system will always correct itself. And we've gotten so far out of whack with our views on like work and work life balance, which is for a lot of people that's almost not even a thing. It's just work.
Right.
But we, there's no balance. It was just work. We've gotten so far out of whack, and our whole self worth being tied up into where we worked and who we worked for. And I was on a forum the other day, and an employer had asked a question. This is an example of how far out of whack we were. An employer had asked a question. They were like, "Hey, I've got two really good employees, and they get off at 6 p.m. every night, but I'm kind of uncomfortable with the fact that their commitment to the company ends at 6 o'clock. What can I do to
What?
motivate them?" I had to reread. I did the same thing. I reread the question. I said, what did it? It was like, yeah, I'm kind of uncomfortable with the fact that their loyalty to the company ends at 6:01. How do I motivate them to like care about the company even after work hours? And I feel like
Wow.
people would see that as a normal question because that's how far out of whack we got with this whole work is the most important thing in life kind of deal. So I'm all for people just being like, not doing it no more. I'll sit at the house, or I'll figure out another way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. And how did you get invited to this forum? Like, didn't they know who you are?
Like the first page, like the when you first log in. So I was just, and I think because I comment so much on that type of stuff, it thought that would be a good question to show me, and I had to refrain from. I was about to go in. Listen here, no, but it just shows, and to that person, that's a legitimate question. That just shows how like where people's minds are sometimes, and so yeah, I'm glad that a lot of people who maybe 2 years ago thought they had to work a certain way or put up with certain treatment or get paid peanuts or realizing that I don't have to do that. And that kind of leads into one of my other favorite topics these days is the fact that I think it's never been easier in history to find a way to work where you want to work,
Oh,
work how
hell
you want
yeah.
to work. Side hustle on your own, start an online business. I think it's just never been easier. And
Mhm.
so as I'm like, all you got to do, the start people is to just go on Google and type in what you want to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
how do I make money without working for nobody? You know what I mean? Just you can put it in as you don't have to be proper English.
Google it. Google it. I dare
No,
you.
just Google that, and I promise you, there will be articles and blog posts and videos. Because
Yeah.
one of the cool things about humanity is we do like to share. So anything, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. Anything um, I'm going through or you're going through, someone else has gone through it. Anything else I want to do or you want to do or anyone wants to do, someone else has gone through it. So it's just like Google it, do
Yeah.
your research, get some freedom.
Yeah. Or put it in the search bar on YouTube because there will be a million videos about it too.
Yeah, I should have said that first. Look on YouTube. If you if you see me, that's click, let the
Yeah.
ads play. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it's never been. Um, what do they say? Like we have more power in the palm of our hand now than Reagan had. When he was running the free world and his bunker or whatever. It's just It's never been easier to get free. I think, and so
Hmm.
now I think the issue just is getting the word out there, the message out there to people that like you can get free. Like first, you got to let people know you're enslaved because I think you
Right?
have to convince you got to convince people you're on the plantation, and then the next step is be like, hey, it's pretty easy to get off. Takes
Hmm.
a little work, but you can leave.
Yeah, I call it decolonizing your mind, right? So, like, it's a process. And the first step is you have to realize that you're enslaved, right? Otherwise, there's no progress possible, right? Because if you don't think you can do something different, then you can't.
Yeah, just gonna be like, nah, I can't do it. And it's so funny to me too, like how a lot of times we're our own worst enemy.
Mm.
Anytime we think of something just too far outside our comfort zone, our brain, which is basically us, immediately kicks up like 20 reasons why you can't do it. Oh, I'd like to do that. And I think immediately, like you can try, just pick
Yeah.
anything that's a little outside your comfort zone, and your brain will come up with 5 reasons why you can't. And
Mhm.
once you realize that, you know to just be like, oh, that's just whatever. I'm still thinking about doing it. But until you realize that, you think those excuses that you come up with are like set in stone. Yeah, right. I can't do that because of so and so. But it's like you don't have to listen. It's just
Yeah.
you talking to you. It's just me
Yeah.
talking to me. Like you don't have to listen. You can just be like, nah, I really want to try this. I really want to take back some control in my life.
Hmm. Well, I loved what you said earlier about just being too stubborn to do things the way other people do them. Were you just born like that, or like that? Did that develop over time?
I think my mom would tell you that I definitely was born. So she's always stubborn. And I can remember, I do remember in my childhood some of the spankings I got was for me just being just. I always have the saying, "Tim's gonna do what Tim wants to do." Tim's gonna do what Tim's gonna do. And in the past, that's gotten me into a lot of trouble.
Hmm.
When I was a younger man. But I mean, I believe in life that I don't think there's anything wrong with being stubborn if you're willing to pay the price for the times when it gets you in trouble.
Hmm.
And so I think I always kind of had that in me. But I also think too, I credit my parents for raising me in an environment that was very like there weren't any set rules as far as as far as life. In some aspects, yes, but in general, they kind of raised me to be like think for yourself, figure it out on your own.
Hmm.
Never let one person tell you this is the way to do it, or a set group of people say this is the way to do it, and you blindly follow it. You know, but figure
Hmm.
out for yourself. So I think a coupling of being stubborn and then just being nurtured in an environment that told me it was okay to figure things out for myself. Eventually it took me a while, but I think eventually later in life, like in my 30s, when I started to look around and be like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I think it made it a little easier to be like, I'm gonna go do this over here. And even though like people don't get it and they don't understand, and like to this day, there's just stuff you go through that people want to talk and say certain things. Like I always tell people when you're happy, you don't hear the noise. You know what I mean? Like, and
Right.
I think there is that transitionary period between like first starting out and you don't see the happiness. When you first start trying to like live the life you want to live and everybody's coming at you, you don't see the happiness yet. But if
Hmm.
you work through that and just keep going, because you know what you want to do in life. We all
Yeah.
know innately. I think we all know what will bring us joy, bring us happiness. We've known since we were kids. It just you. I think if you just work through that and keep going, when you get to that joy and that happiness, yeah, you realize, oh, I don't care what they're talking about. I
Right.
don't care. I don't. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy. I'm good. Like what? It doesn't bother me that they don't get it. Like
Yeah.
it'd be like if you're a kid and you're eating ice cream cone and you're on cloud nine just eating that ice cream cone. Nothing else around you matters.
Right.
I say that. So like that's the way I think we all can be in life. Is just like if we can get to that place of doing what we want to do and being surrounded by loving people and
Hmm.
a good portion of our time doing things that we want to do. I think
Yes.
the rest of this just doesn't even you
Oh
know.
my gosh. This year, I decided that I'm only going to do what I want to do going forward. That's it. I'm done with sometimes I do what I want to do. No, all the time. I'm only doing what I want to do. And it's just transformational. It's only been, what, 21 days so far, but I love my new life.
Yes, that's awesome. That's all. And it's crazy that we live in a society where that's like a radical, revolutionary idea. I'm
Right?
just gonna do it. Oh, what? Like people like that blows people's mind. And I promise you, you've probably seen this already. If you say that to the average person, they'll try to talk you out of it. Oh no, you can't. You can't do. You have. People always say, "But what about this? What about this? What about this?" Basic stuff like, "I just want to do what I want to do." People will argue against it. That
Yeah.
shows me that like it's programming because you would think we all. It has to be. Whenever a group of people all behave in a certain illogical manner, it has to be outside programming. Like it just doesn't.
Mhm.
Like you would think that if you're like, I'm just going to live my life the way I want to, people would be like, great. But instead, they're like, oh, you sure?
You know how you call yourself stubborn? I've always called myself spoiled. And I say that not because I really believe I'm spoiled, but I know that's how other people have always perceived me.
Mm,
'Cause
gotcha.
like from when I was a little girl, my mom used to call me spoiled because she couldn't control me. And she used to call me, I'm the third of three girls, right? And she called me the daughter she could not control. And I wore that like a badge of honor, you know?
Nice, nice, nice.
I
Oh,
just could not. My mom came from this really intense American dream family where she and, well, six siblings became doctors and came over to America to practice medicine, right?
that's a lot of doctors.
Yeah, six doctors in one family. And so we were all expected to follow in their footsteps. And um, in my generation, out of there were nine kids in my mom's family, only two became doctors in my generation.
Mm,
One was my middle sister, and one is a cousin I have in the Philippines. The rest of us, and there's a lot of us, all did our own thing, you know. Uh,
nice.
but my oldest sister became a lawyer. My middle sister became a doctor, and I was just like, from day one, those aren't my options. You can say I only have two options, but I don't believe you.
Nice, nice.
And I was a musician. That was my first profession. I was a musician when I was a kid. And my mom would get so mad at me for not focusing on academics, right? And, and my grandmother said, and this is the grandmother who sent all these doctors over here for their American dream life. She said, "Oh, she's already a doctor. She's a musician. Music is medicine for the soul."
True, true.
And I was like, "Thank you, Lola."
That is so true. That's true.
So yeah, I've just always been like difficult to control. And
Which is
you know,
beautiful.
kind of marching to the beat of a different drummer. You know? But I'm happy. That's the thing.
I think that's it. I mean, that's life in a nutshell. It's just like, why do we put so much emphasis on what you do and how you do it and how much they pay you to
Mhm.
do it and where do you live? Like, are you happy? Like, that should really be the only scale. You happy? Yeah. You happy? Yeah. Okay, we're both good, but it's just so weird we live in a society where people will flat out tell you, oh, you can't be happy in this life. You can't just make decisions based on happiness. You gotta be an adult. You gotta and like you, I'm just like, no, I don't. Like not like but the crazy thing is I personally feel like I'm big on abundance. So, one of the universe is abundant. You could say God is abundant, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Life is abundant. And so, like, one of the things I've found from being able to be around a lot of people who are kind of the same way is that I feel like a lot of the things that other people forego happiness to get, if you go after happiness first, you'll end up getting those things too.
Right.
Like
And maybe going beyond where you could have imagined, you know?
and I think that's how the abundance, of course, abundance being positive, I feel like works better in positive environments. So if
Yes.
I'm happy and I'm living my life, I'm gonna get more of that abundance in as opposed to someone who's like unhappy and it's just not in a good space trying to acquire these things. So I'm like, it's not like I'm sacrificing life for happiness. It's kind of like I'm getting, it's all coming together
Yes.
because I decided to like go after what makes me happy.
I know, it's so crazy. Like I started, well, I've always read a lot, and in my teens, I think I started reading primarily personal development books, right? And
Okay.
so I've been familiar since I was a teen with this concept of just attending to your own emotional state and being happy, and then letting the rest of life just kind of flow. And it wasn't until last year, and now I'm in my 50s, right? So it wasn't until last year that I really got it in my heart that all I had to pay attention to was how I was feeling, that the rest would all just come. And if I could maintain my happy bubble, that like amazing things would happen. And I'm just so grateful that I finally got it. Only took 40 years.
I think it's one of those things that like if you didn't get it till 80, it's like the few years after that you had or whatever, it's like worth it. You know what I mean? Like
Right?
it's so it's such a rich feeling, and I think that's too that leads to other things like I you know as since I've been kind of on this path, I'm a little more at peace, which I'm still working on that, but I'm getting more and more at peace. And a lot of the things that used to bother me don't bother me. And I don't worry about the future as much. And I think it is because, like, if I'm happy in the present, I'm so, like you said, so grateful and just so in this moment, I'm just so good that, like, I by extension, I'm not, and maybe too, it's because I'm not waiting for my happiness to come in the future. And so
Right.
I'm looking at the future. But it's just like I'm not worried about all that because I'm good now, and it's such a good feeling now that's
Yeah.
why I'm like, hey, if something happens and I don't make it past this year or something like that, I'm I'm so good now. I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like I'm cool. And so that's an amazing feeling. I know people say I talk about death a lot, but I'm like I do that in a frame. Whenever I say a statement like I just said, people will be like, "Don't say that," and I'm like, it doesn't you're speaking into existence. And I'm like, but like I just said, I'm not worried about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just, it's a lot of the things that used to bother me don't anymore. And that's why, um, my message is so much. And I'm always talking about this type of stuff because I'm like, I just want everybody to be happy and enjoy their life and, just
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah. Hey, another thing we have in common is that we're both sober. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that. Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're both sober. And
Awesome.
I wondered if you ever thought about the connection between sobriety and freedom. Like, do you feel like there's any
Mm.
relationship?
I totally think there is one. I mean, even if you take it almost in a sort of literal sense, I think that you know, if when alcohol had a hold on someone like it did on me.
Hmm.
Alcohol has a hold on someone like it was. I I literally was almost like enslaved to the alcohol. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
like in that sense, like it was controlling my life. In that sense, but then also just like the mental clarity I got when I wasn't drunk. You know, half the week. I was either at work
Right.
or drinking or hungover. That was all there was with them was working, drinking, hungover. It was really, so that's not the best environment to grow as
Yeah.
as as a human being. So just like I know a lot of the some of the strides I started taking and changing my life, I was still drinking, but I noticed that like I kept getting pushed back because I would get drunk and do something stupid, and so I know that a lot of the strides I've been blessed to be able to take in recent years would not have happened if I was still drinking. So I know there's and I think too just that. and I'm sure you can attest to this, just that boost of self-esteem you get from sobriety. And I think the harder you struggled in worse situations you went through drinking and the harder it was to get sober, just that boost of self-esteem and being able to be like, I overcame that,
Mm-hmm.
I think helps you when you do run up against obstacles when you're, trying to get freer and taking your life back like that. You got that to fall back on. You like, if I can stop doing that, this ain't stopping. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
nothing. So I definitely think there's a correlation, and I think in a lot of people's lives that might be, you know, and you don't always see these steps. That's why I'm big on like whatever's in front of you at the moment that you're identifying. Oh, I need to cut that out. Work on that. And as lowly humans, we can't always see the steps, but the universe sees the steps. And a lot of times you're like, oh,
Right.
I'm trying to do this, and like I can't get to that. But the universe is like, I've been telling you for the past year to stop doing this. And that for me, that was a big thing. Was like, I'm like, man, I'm trying to. And the universe, like, I've been telling you to stop drinking, Tim, for 10 years.
Right.
And
Right.
so when I finally was able to overcome that, it's just weird. Like so many different doors. I'm like, oh, this is okay. So yeah, I'd say we all, like I said, I'm a firm believer. We all know things we want to work on, need to work on, even if they seem small sometimes. I think if we embrace those and fix those or grow in those areas, I think then it leads to something else, and then that leads to something else. And so, yeah, I definitely think getting sober has been super instrumental in me being able to live the life I live now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you say the same thing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I had no idea when I stopped drinking that it was just going to be like the first step in this journey. Let me tell you, there was a whole lot of other behaviors I needed to change. That was just the first one I attempted. But like you were saying, like doing that gave me confidence to do the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and like I don't know. I just feel like the clearer my mind can be, the easier it is for me to hear guidance from the universe, right? So I probably initially got sober so I could be like a better mom, you know? I had three boys and then I raised a whole bunch of other kids. So I think initially I got sober so I could be a better mom. But over time, the reason I stay sober is so that I can have a clear connection with my higher power, so I can hear the whispers instead of having to struggle through life.
Yes, yes, I totally get that. Like, yeah, and I believe the answers are there, and I
Mm-hmm.
think
They're
that,
there.
yeah, and it's just weird that like I feel like so many people have and once again, this goes back to the program. Whenever I'm saying like so many people and most people, that is not me negatively saying that about people. That's not me talking trash about people or judging people. I think
Right.
it's the program. So I think we're just brought up in a society where a lot of people think the world sucks. They think life sucks. They think the
Mm-hmm.
universe is a negative place. And it's like, I personally feel, most of the people I associate with now feel like the universe is a positive place and it's there to help you. Like, I don't think we were put on this planet and, for something up there to sit around and be like, suffer, suffer, suffer. Like, I just don't, I just don't think that's the goal.
No,
So
and
I too,
if there is a being like that, I don't want to talk to them. So
exactly. No contact. Yeah, so it's just like I think the universe wants to help you. And like you said, I think it sends out messages. And yeah, when you're like I was, drunk all the time or laying in bed so hungover I couldn't, even get up to rehydrate myself. You can't hear that stuff. You're just either your mind is muddled from the alcohol or you're just so miserable and you're so down because of the guilt and all the crazy stuff I did the night before. You just don't have time to listen. you're just wrapped up in your own world of misery. But yeah,
Mhm.
once you can get some of that out of your life, and I think this goes for other things we have in our lives that maybe we need to, it could be a relationship, it could be sometimes it's
Yeah.
work. For some people, it's work. All this stuff comes together. Like if you're at the wrong job and they're working you like a dog, 70 hours a week and typically not paying you, what you're worth for it. And you're always having to, you're going to be always thinking about work or thinking about how much you hate work. Once again, you don't have time to listen, So I
Mhm.
think when we do get things out of our life that shouldn't be there, yeah, it opens you up to start embracing more change and more growth.
Yeah. Where do you think all this stuff came from? Like all these beliefs that we have about what's right to do and what's wrong to do and what's possible and what's not. Where do you think all this came from?
I I think that a lot of it is a byproduct, like control. I'll say the short answer is people wanting to control us. And so I think there's a couple different areas where humans are really controlled, but I think it boils down to certain powers that be wanting to control the masses for their own gain. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if all of it. I don't know if 100 or how many years ago when a lot of the stuff we believe now about possessions and materialism and all that started to come about. I don't know if there was six guys sitting in a room and they were like, hey, in 100 years. I don't know if they knew what it was. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they had that foresight. I just think they realized, oh, if we do this, we'll make more money. We'll be, we'll be in control. And I just
Mm-hmm.
think over time, a lot of these beliefs have just been more and more just like become part of society. So yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to just governments and people in control. A lot of people get mad when I say this one, but I do think on some levels, like religion has played a part in shaping, you know, some of the
Mm-hmm.
beliefs we have. That I'm all about higher power, communing with that higher power. But sometimes I think we're sometimes it's man telling us stuff and saying it came from God. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of that gets in, and that's some of the hardest stuff to fight. Because if you're raised believing like this is God said this, even as you get older and you're like, you know what, I agree with all this other stuff over here. That seems a little weird though. Parties like, oh, but God said it. That's some of the hardest stuff to break. So I just feel like a lot of our beliefs just come from people trying to control us. And especially too, if a generation above us, the generation that taught us, if they just kind of believed that stuff and they took it as gospel and took it as the right way to live, they pass that to you. They say you're I forget the exact years, but 2 to 10 or something are the most important years in like your development. So if that's what you were taught, it's hard to break away from that. And I think it takes someone being like, wait a second, some of this don't make sense, and then like putting it
Yeah.
putting it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it really helps. That's why I think it's really important that we're on YouTube talking about these things because until somebody's exposed to other beliefs, it's really hard for them to consider that, there's anything but what they grew up believing.
Yeah, it's like, why would you ever believe other than what you believe? If you know what I mean, if there's no other, especially a lot of people, you can grow up in certain places where everybody around you thinks the same way. I
Yes.
see this a lot, like smaller towns and things like. That's why I love traveling because I get to see different areas, and you're like, oh, everybody here believes this, but everybody over here, But so that if pretty much everyone around you believes what you believe, except one or two people, and everybody's always told you they're crazy or they're them, we're
Mhm.
us, they're them. Um, why would you ever believe different? Like it's just, everybody says this is, So
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Me personally, I think it falls to all of us who, especially if we enjoy, being on the internet, being on camera, things of that nature. I think it's kind of I see it almost as an obligation on some
Hmm.
level to, yeah, tell people get our story out there. I mean, just, once again, we may not feel qualified, or it's like, why would someone listen to me? You know what I mean? But like, and I think it's great the day and age we're living in, because like, I think we used to live in a time period where once again, we're programmed to believe that the truth came from certain people.
Right,
You had
right.
these newscasters, and you saw them every night, and they
Yes.
had the truth.
Well,
And
see,
that's
when
what
I was
you.
growing up, there were only 3 channels, So
Ooh,
your your uh your options for information were very limited. And if you wanted to learn something new, you had to go to this big building called a library and check
who?
out books.
The kids are like,
It was
who? What?
crazy. If you had a question at 10 o'clock at night, you just had to wait.
You had to write it down.
You had to write it down, go to the library the
Down.
next day. Hopefully, it wasn't a Sunday, and go in there, find the book.
The crazy thing is, like, if you don't know the answer, you don't even know what book to get.
Right?
A lot, like, yeah, if you don't know the answer, you just had a question. Like, how do you find the answer? But yeah, I think it's great we live in a day and age where,
Life was so hard, y'all. You have no idea.
these days we have Google, and also like we have people who, I think we've come to a point where we enjoy like talking to and listening to and consuming content from people like us. There was a
Right?
time, like I said, you thought these people had the truth. You listened to them, but now you're like, oh, let me find somebody who looks like me or comes from the country I come from, or has some of the same things about them that I have about me. And so you can go on the internet, and any of us, can find someone that we can relate to, and then I think it makes the message easier to take in. And just sometimes you find there's people you find more entertaining, or you just think they're cute, or I don't know. But I love that about today's day and age, and that's what I always tell people. Because sometimes I'll run into people and they're asking questions about getting started on the internet, and I'm like, there are people out there who want to hear what you have to say from you. You know, 20 other people could be saying the same thing, but it will resonate with them because you said it. And
Right.
so that's why I love the internet, is because it allows us to reach the people that like want to hear stuff from us, and trust us because of who we are.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's funny how, like, your favorite YouTubers, you can be watching them for years. And so you feel like you know them already, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've never actually met in person.
Mm-hmm. And I
That's
think
why
that's
it's so fun to me now that I have a channel to like be able to invite people on that I really like, because then I can actually see what they're like in interaction.
have you ever been disappointed? No.
Have I ever been what?
You ever been disappointed? You got somebody on, you're like, ooh.
No, not yet. I mean, it could happen.
You're like, hey,
Not likely.
I,
Not likely. Honestly, Tim, I love people. I love people and their stories. That's why I became a therapist, Like, I just love people and hearing their stories and helping them figure out how they want to change their lives. That's why when I started the channel, I actually rebranded myself from a therapist to a life coach, because I've always been more into like collaborating with people than
uh-huh.
like being the expert that tells you what to do.
Gotcha,
In fact,
gotcha.
I used to be in a 12-step program, and people would ask me to be their sponsors all the time. And then they would fire me within a couple months because I wouldn't tell them what to do.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
the thing is, you're supposed to give suggestions, right? That's what they say. But most people want to be told what to do when they're newly sober. And I just refuse to do it. Be like, oh, is that something you want to do?
They're like, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, and I think I like even for me, yeah, I'd be way more likely to find a life coach than a therapist, and I
Mm,
think that's where the world is kind of maybe heading for a lot of people. That especially the younger generations, they've grown up. Life coaching has been big. I think yeah, it's more people want that interaction, collaboration. Let's talk this through together, as opposed to just like yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I feel like that kind of like I am the expert, let me tell you what to do kind of therapy is like it's just mimicking like our larger system, right? Where people are just being told what to do, what to believe. And I think people really need to be their own agents, like to be
Mm,
able to figure out what they want. Earlier, you were talking about how everybody knows what they want to do. Well, I've met quite a few people over the years, Tim, that do not know what they want to do because they've been repressing that for so
mm.
long. Maybe since they were kids, being told what they wanted wasn't okay, it shouldn't even be on the agenda, that they forgot what they like, what makes them happy. And they had to go through a huge process to remember what they actually liked,
That's insane.
right?
Like I say, stuff like that. Yeah, just the yeah, because just stuff like this. See, stuff like that bothers me. You know what I mean? Like I just want everybody to live their life, be as happy as possible, and it just the thought of yeah, people just. But that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. It's programming is one of the words I use the most, but it happens like because I have this thing that like I feel like you're never more enlightened than when you were like a child. Like I
Yes.
personally think that like we're all born enlightened. We've just forgotten. I don't think it's like okay, you're not enlightened and then you can find it. I think we were all born enlightened, and the way to enlightenment is to go back to unlearn. All this stuff they taught us. But it's like yeah, kids, you don't have to tell a kid to have fun. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to tell a kid to be like kids wake up in the morning and they can't wait to get out of bed and go do whatever they're going to do. It's there. They're
Yep.
just all over the. You got to tell a kid to stop having fun. You got to eat dinner. Stop. Like you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just there. Like it's not even a question of they're just doing it. They're happy. They're all you know what I mean? And then slowly but surely that gets taken out of us, and people start telling us you can't do that. You got to do start coming in. You got to do that. You got to do that. You got to do that. Yeah, like you were saying. Oh yeah, you can't want to do that. That's bad. And then like we just turn into these adults that we're not doing. It's like it just annoys me. I'm just like I just want everyone to love life.
Yeah.
There are negatives in life, or things we perceive as negative, and things that cause us pain and suffering. But that's a part of life. And the thing that helps you deal with all that better is when you're happy and joyful the majority of the time. You know, yeah. If you don't love your life and you're sadly living a life that's not fulfilling to you, you're really going to be down when something negative happens or you go through something. But it's like if you're up and you're excited about life every day and you love it, yeah, you might go through some stuff and yeah, it might really suck. But like I know I'm gonna get back to my happiness, or
Hmm.
or I can reminisce on the happy times until they come back around. So yeah, I really get worked up when I think about just how we're programmed to see the world.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like joy is our natural state. And if you ever want to get people upset at a party, say that sentence out loud. Because I accidentally upset a lot of people by sharing my opinion with a friend out loud. And oh boy, do people want to argue about that one. Joy is our natural state. That's my belief. That's my opinion. People can disagree. It's okay. But I really believe this because of what you were saying. Like, you watch little kids, and I've watched a lot of little kids, right? I raised 16 kids altogether, and I've taught in
Oh,
schools, I've done therapy in schools and in people's homes and on the streets. Anyway, I have worked with a lot of kids. And so I um know that joy is really natural to them, and learning also very, like, they're just learning and laughing all the time. Kids are amazing like that. And there's this guy, I think he has this YouTube channel too. Have you ever seen Sadhguru?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he
Uh-huh.
asks people sometimes in interviews, are you as happy as you were when you were 5 years old? And when the person says no, he says, "Oh, you're in your 30s or whatever, how old they are. Your life is a mess. You should be at least 10, 20 times happier than you were when you were 5, you know?" And I just think, wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so amazing. Like that we come in so equipped to live our lives, you know, happily skipping down the path, right? And then we get totally programmed out of it, you know?
And I wish like there would be a way that we could look back at our life from like above, and like there would be a chart that would like show, so you could like visibly see when it started to change. Like I would love to know like what's right around the time. I think of a big, it's probably, when you start going to school. That's probably a big one. That's where it really jumps. You go to those indoctrination camps they call public school. Anyway,
Hey, Tim,
but I would love.
get this. I homeschooled my kids, and that was another thing people wanted to argue about with me all the time because it was the 80s, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I didn't just homeschool my kids. I like free range homeschooled my kids. They call it unschooling now, right? So I let them
Oh,
learn what they wanted to learn, when they wanted to learn it, how they wanted to learn it. And once in a while I check in and say, "Hey, do you need anything?" Like, but mostly they were doing their thing, I was doing my thing, and if they needed something, usually they came to me. Like they needed a ride, they needed me to pay for a class they wanted to take or something, or buy a book, you know. Um, they were really independently educated, and I feel like it made them so different from most people out there. Um I really love watching who they've become. Now they're 23, 35, and 36, my boys. And they're amazing individuals. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't allow them to get indoctrinated by the mainstream until they were mature enough to make their own choices, you know?
I
Because I
like
feel like
that.
if you get stuck in there from age 5 or 6, ooh, it's hard to unlearn all that.
I mean, they get you early. If you think about it, 5 and you're there. You see the teachers more than you see your parents,
Yep.
and you're there from 5 to 18, 19. Then you go off to college. If you think about it, you only had 5 years with your parents, and then the next 13 plus you're with these other people more. You're gonna believe what they tell you. Like you
Yeah.
see, like you're gonna believe what they tell you, and they don't give you a chance to unlearn it, because as soon as you get out of high school, you go to college, and it's the same game, and then they really ramp it up when you go to work. As soon as you get out of college, you go to work. So it's like you never have time to just like be with the people who love you. Like who might have, no, it's just from 5 years old, four, if they put you in pre-K, 4 years
Right.
old until maybe, like me, sometimes in my 30s, late mid 30s, I'm like, I don't know if this is the life I want to be living. Like 33, 34, I found myself, just starting to look at a lot of minimalism stuff and like tiny house living and stuff that I went from like watching comic book hauls every day on the internet to like, I'm like, why am I watching this person living in a tiny house? Why am I watching this person backpacking across the US? But I think it was finally a part of me being like, hey, this isn't the life. I had a
Yeah.
good life, but I think something in me finally was like, yeah, this is cool, but it's not fulfilling me. And I think if that happens, then you start looking in a different direction. But yeah, I feel like some people that programming from such a young age just gets so wrapped up in them that they don't even get a chance to kind of stop and be like, is this what I want to do? You just, this is it, and then you wake up at 65 and you've been working your whole life to get to retirement and retire. And then, yes, here we go. Here's the topic. You, you wait your whole life to get to 65. And if you're one of the fortunate people who actually can retire with a pension,
Mm-hmm.
The brave few, the rare few, I think a lot of people get there and they're like, well, wait, this ain't, I've been waiting all this time to get here and this ain't no fun. Or you're like millions of people in this country and around the world who never get to retire. And then you're really just like, well, what was it all for? like what am I doing? Which is, I laugh, but it's very sad. But yeah, I feel blessed that there was that time where it just started to poke me. And it was just like, this ain't it. I'm always down to, just good conversation with good people, I think is one of the positive things in life that like really give it meaning.
Me too.
I'm always down to, like I said, I this is the first time we really like met, but I could tell your energy was just amazing, and you're just an awesome person. So yeah, it's good to like it's. I like people who, as soon as you start talking, like your friends.
Yeah.
My mom used to always tell me because like we'd be driving somewhere, and I would be sitting in the back, seat or something, talking to myself and making myself laugh, and she'd be like, I don't know anybody else that can like crack themselves up like you. And I was like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like it's just always been, and I think that is a positive thing, a good thing. And I think I think that's the reason why it's important to try to like, I don't know, to get to know yourself, But I guess I guess I'm trying to say get to know yourself and love yourself. That I think that's more, love yourself. Embrace yourself. And, you don't have to be down on yourself 24/7. Don't take yourself so seriously. Like, it's love yourself, laugh with yourself, have fun, and then like when other people come into your life, that just adds to it. But yeah, if you're just sitting around waiting for this life ain't gonna be good when I meet somebody, that might be good. But it's my thing. I always like, I want to be the type of person that when I do come across other people, they want to be around me, as opposed to like, yeah, just being miserable and sad. And then when people do meet me, they're like, what gives me hope is love.
Mm.
I'll say that. I like to look at the world and life in general, big picture, and especially times like these where there's a lot of people are down and feeling hopeless. Humanity has survived through countless incarnations of the past few years we've been through, and worse things, worse times. And I really think that it's love that gets us through every time. I don't care how evil, how bad, how negative, how crazy some people get. The love that we all have for the people we really care about and love the love will always overpower the hate. And I think love is the fabric, one of the fabrics the universe is made up of. So like what gives me hope is to know that there's nothing anybody can do. There's nothing any substance or any virus or anything can do that can stop love. And so, you know what I mean? Like I really don't. I believe that with all my soul. So like for me, I have hope because I know the next generation there will be people who are all about love and they'll keep it going, and then the next generation like that will always be as long as there is humanity. So I, I can't get down and I can't be hopeless because I know there's always going to be that connection, that love, and There's always, so it's just, it's in our nature. It is what it is. So that's one of the reasons that people say I'm too optimistic. But I'm like, I'm optimistic, which I'm like, I don't know it's possible. But like, it's always been this way. I think it will always be this way. It's love is love, you know.